afternoon, and this is a rehearsal of the Dot Martens Marching Girls. Out there are 52 girls, women, dykes, lesbians, label of your choice. They're all fine-tuning their moves for the Hero Parade, which is only 2 weeks away. Up here in Auckland, it's 33 degrees. It's sticky, muggy heat. I don't know how these girls are doing it without melting, but that's sheer dyke determination for you.
Over skip. That's it. Yes. Woohoo!
No marching team would be complete without a choreographer to crack the whip. Kathy Menzies is a super dyke. She works a 60-hour week. She's a mother, a grandmother. She coaches both the marching boys and girls. And she's only 5'2".
Forward. And forward. Okay, timing off the girl in front.
Learning the moves is fun. I mean, it's difficult in the beginning and everybody's a bit uncoordinated, and then you go through it a few times, it gets better and better, and then it'll suddenly click, and it's just that marvellous feeling when everything comes together and you can tell that group and sort of osmosis or something. You can tell that everybody else is in too. Everybody's got that up feeling, and it's sort of... Yeah.
There's 2 main sequences, so there's a whole sequence that's about 64 beats, and then it goes into a second sequence which is also 64, and then the whole thing repeats, and it just keeps on repeating in a loop all the way down Ponsonby Road. So what looks simple, hopefully, at night, on the night of Hero, is actually quite complicated to get it to that point. What you're looking for is a simple, kind of really clean, quite snappy visual image, but to get it to that point, they all have to do, they're all doing different counts all the time. So if you're in the back row, your counts will be very different from if you're in the front row, and so it takes a lot of time to work out what those counts need to be.
I want to see some discipline in this now. Come on, you've got the count. Now make it tight, tight, and tight, and spacing and dressing going. Listen. That took you 4 minutes. Do you know how long it takes to get down Ponsonby Road? 1.5 hours. And it is at least that hot. Okay, so we're going to do it all the way back. Especially in our lovely tops.
What does Hero mean to you?
A celebration of gay families, gay people, happy times.
The idea of family was explored during the festival through a series of workshops called Queer Family 2000. There emerged many definitions of family.
Probably different things to each individual, but I think for me it's an extended version of the traditional family. It encompasses brothers, sisters, partners, sons, daughters, mother-in-law, father-in-law, that sort of thing. It's anything really. Anything goes.
I try and take sort of the Māori definition of whānau, and it's a broader definition, but it's very much about kinship orientated in terms of Māori, but it's also important to move out of that and look at non-kin association, but still sort of carrying the whānau values of things like aroha, manaakitanga, which are really important values to Māori. And their literal translations are about sort of love, caring, support, and hopefully I get a lot of those things out of Hero as well.
Adrian and Jane are a lesbian couple who are the primary caregivers for Jack. But Jack also spends time with his father and his partner.
I think lesbians and gays make great parents because we make a really strong choice about having our child or our children, and we've got a tremendous amount of support. Not only in Jack's case does he have 2 mummies and 2 daddies, but he's got a whole bunch of other friends who are aunties and uncles as well. Really strong family units.
Now you may be wondering how their biological and straight families have reacted to this family unit.
Initially when I talked about becoming pregnant and trying to get pregnant, there was a lot of shock, horror expressed, and questions like how will you look after this child, and that type of thing, an anger that was there, sort of hurt or something. So similar to when I actually came out as a lesbian with them. And however, since Jack's come along, that's all broken down. They're completely in love with him, and it has strengthened our relationship, my relationship with them, quite a lot. Brought a lot more joy into the relationship.
And if you have a gay parent, are you going to grow up unhappy, socially disadvantaged, unsuccessful?
It can't be.
So how do you feel about your mum being a lesbian?
What? You mean Denise isn't really my father?
Sorry, darling. Well, he grew up with it, really. He was 6 when I separated. I was a late starter. I didn't find out until I was just over 30. Took up jogging for 2 years, but found that didn't work. So he came and lived with me, and after I separated, and he's just grown up with it. I remember one day he said to me at school, he was about 8, he came home from school and said, "Mum, the kids at school said that my mum's lesbian." And I said, "Well, what did you say?" And he said, "So what?" And I thought, well, I don't know. He didn't actually know, I don't think, what lesbian was. I mean, he knew that I was in a relationship with another woman because she was living with us. But he doesn't seem to have had many problems at all.
Seeing you Pesh gave it away. When I was little, none of the kids really understood what it was anyway, so it didn't really bother me. But when I went through high school, I sort of kept it quiet just in case, you know, there were quite a few homophobic people around. I thought, oh, you know, people would turn around and say, "Oh, you must be gay too," then, you know, I was worried about getting beaten up at school and stuff. But no, it wasn't really a big problem. All my friends knew. No one had a problem with it. I think I'm a lesbian too.
I'm very proud of what he's achieved. I'm also very pleased that this interview was his idea, which means that he obviously doesn't have any problems with homophobia and things like that, and that's very pleasing.
Can't afford to in my job, really.
Very pleasing.
So what about Pacific Island families? I talked to another television personality who's involved with a mixed Pacific Island group promoting awareness of queer issues. His name is Harold, but he's otherwise known as Bertha.
Welcome to our show tonight. We are called UFA, and on the program you would have booked for a show called Who Would Have Thought That Theatre Was a Drag? And the reason we called it that was because so many of our people happen to be drag queens. We can't quite figure it out yet, but we're undergoing some major research about that. While we do, field research.
Whawhawhine Taonted is being an accepted part of the culture, but it's one of those things where, yes, it's a recognised element of the culture, but Pacific Island people are can be quite down on whawhawhine and whakaleite. The concepts of gay men are very foreign to Pacific Island people, and concepts of lesbian women as well. I mean, they can understand whawhawhine, they sort of understand Pacific Island gay men. They have no idea about Pacific Island lesbians because they can't imagine what they would do. I think that's the good thing about UFA, is that we're actually creating the groundwork for exposing Pacific Island people to gay men, Pacific Island lesbian women, and the issues that we face within our own cultures.
Does everybody know what a coconut looks like? Well, usually they look like me. Glorious coconuts.
The fibres of the husk of the coconut are actually rolled together to form a very strong tie or rope. And traditionally it was used to bind things like the posts and the whale together because, of course, there were no nails. So we used that analogy because we felt that people were from different Pacific Islands, different value systems, and we wanted to show that it was binding together of all of those sort of things to create one group. When I was younger, I went to church, and the church fostered things like performance. So I carried those things throughout my life.
What denomination church did you go to?
I was born and raised a Mormon.
Right. That's quite strict when it comes down to homosexuality, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very strict, and I think coming out was really that whole psychological decision that I would no longer be a Mormon, because there were things that I felt inside me that I couldn't correlate with the teachings of the church. So when I finally made the decision, it actually became a lot easier, to come out. One of UFA's key focus
is providing education about HIV and AIDS to Pacific Island gay men in particular, because we are the most affected group, and whawhawhine. So with the New Zealand AIDS Foundation, we've put together an ad campaign which we've just photographed over the last 3 weeks, and we're putting out an HIV booklet focused at Pacific Island people. The message is the same for everybody, and that is safe sex, but the way you deliver the message is quite different, and that's what we're trying to do with this project.
Hero means to me belonging to a community, belonging to the Pacific Island Upper group. We've become strengthened as a result of that, and also belonging to a bigger gay and lesbian community.
It's actually about tolerance and acceptance and kindness and energy.
Coming up, a dancer, a gardener and a fashion fiasco.